Hello and welcome to the Film Ireland podcast. Ahead of the Virgin Media Dublin International Film Festival, we have three fantastic filmmakers here whose work is going to be screening in the Shorts programme.
Thanks, William. It's great to be here.
Thanks for having us.
So we have three very different films, and I was hoping if we could start with you, Suri, if we go around, introduce ourselves and our film.
Yeah, okay, cool. Thanks a million. I'm Suri Grennell. I have a film called Wrath in Dublin International Film Festival. It's a short kind of, I describe it as a feminist horror, but it's pretty heavily a drama as well. And it's just about an epidemic that's sweeping through Ireland, and it only affects women, and it has all of the signifiers of rage.
Yes. Very, very emotionally true on a lot of levels sometimes. Yeah. It's a fantastic short. I had kind of said it nods to The Handmaid's Tale in some ways, then with a zombie twist in a lot of ways, but it's stunning as well and really works as a short piece. And Tristan.
My name's Tristan Heanue. I wrote and directed a film called Ciúnas, and it follows a couple as they embark on a journey in the midst of a family crisis.
Excellent.
Yeah,
and very
really,
powerful.
Really good.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
Ooh.
It's gorgeous. It's hard to get all the subtext into a synopsis, and your film has so much of that beautiful, layered, emotional lines that are drawn that really work.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah, definitely. And Iseult.
Hi, I'm Iseult Howlett, and I directed a short doc called The Grass Ceiling. It looks at three Irish sportswomen and kind of explores how when you get really in touch with your body through sport, you kind of get in touch with being able to be competitive and aggressive and lots of things that aren't available to women in everyday life. So
it's actually striking when, they're just fantastic characters. You've really caught them so well, even though it's such a short piece. But you really, watching this, it's so striking how as women we're conditioned not to be certain ways. And you've really kind of captured that so well.
Thanks. So it's based on an essay by Emer Ryan, who's a brilliant fiction writer and a journalist. And she's a camogie player, and she's the featured camogie player in the short. And so I read her essay and just thought, that's fucking brilliant, and cold called her by email and then asked her could I develop her essay into a doc script.
First, I was just going to ask a little bit about the backgrounds. What's very interesting about you three is you come from completely different, separate areas in film. So editing, performance, and production.
Yeah, well, I actually work in production in TV mostly. But yeah, so my passion would be writing and directing though. So I've been on a forced sabbatical for a couple of months now. Dry work January. So I've been just writing and that kind of thing as well. But yeah, TV mostly, casting for reality TV.
Oh, wow. Interesting. Well, I see you meet a lot of characters there that can definitely influence your writing.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit, and I'm going to ask everybody, I'm going to go around and do this as well. Can you just tell me a little bit about, does it influence you as a writer and director having that background and having that knowledge?
I don't know really, to be honest, at the moment in my life. I work in casting, as I said, so I speak to so many people all day, every day, with all kinds of different stories, and the whole point of my job really is to mine stories. But so far for me with my writing and stuff, it's been very much about my own personal experience. And maybe at some point I will, start to kind of look at some of the characters and people that I've met, and I'm sure they do seep in and their voices are in there somewhere, but for the moment, it's pretty personal.
You're still storytelling though, aren't you? Even if you're casting, and even if it's for TV, I work in TV a lot as well, mostly, nearly always, and I think even at casting stage, your ambition is to be telling a story.
Yeah, 100%. It is one of the more creative parts of production that you can do, actually, because you can sort of almost not impose a story, but you do have to kind of pull a story from something and then sell it.
The beginning
to
of
production
the
team.
craft, 100%.
Yeah. So it's fun. I love the job, to be honest. But so yeah, I suppose storytelling definitely. But I haven't directly pulled anybody's story, so don't worry, everybody.
Every writer steals. Like if you know a writer, they've used you in some way, shape, or form. If you've any bit of quirks or personality, I think that's fair enough.
True.
It's part and parcel. You were saying as well that okay, so one of the things that you do is the sales element. Like that actually is really important when getting funding and applying for funding and kind of pitching then for festivals.
Yeah.
Is there any kind of advice that you'd have there for people?
God, I don't know. Like I have once gotten funding, so I don't know.
But it was the good funding. It was a lot of it.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, for me anyway, like say if I'm pitching in my normal job, I suppose like being passionate about the subject is always really, really important. So being passionate about the person whose story I'm trying to tell through casting, or being passionate about my own story is really important. And then just being really well rehearsed and knowing exactly what you want to say and making sure you get to say it. That would be my sort of experience of pitching anyway, which is minimal.
Thank you so much. And Tristan, so yourself about your project and how your other elements, does it influence it?
The acting.
And your background there, yeah. Because you have an amazing CV. You've worked on a lot of...
Yeah, I was acting. I started acting in 2010 when I was 30. I was relatively late to filmmaking, and yeah, I acted for about 3-4 years, and then I started writing. Just out of, I didn't work for about a year, and I was unemployed, and I started writing. I'd stopped drinking at the time as well, and I was kind of needed something to kind of fill the gap, and I started writing. And I just wrote a couple of scripts, and one of them I made called In This Place about 5 or 6 years ago. And then I found more going into directing. I wrote a script that I didn't see myself in, and I started directing. I definitely found the background, my background as an actor really kind of helped me with actors, kind of directing actors and knowing how to speak to them and stuff like that. But all my stories as well would pretty much be kind of personal enough, kind of, are drawn from loosely kind of personal experiences or other people's as well, you know.
Was your acting screen acting or stage acting? Or
screen acting, yeah.
And then all your writing is screenwriting, is it?
Yeah, I've written a couple of plays, but for like my local people at home in my local area in Connemara asked me to write something for the 50th anniversary of my school. Oh. And they sent me an email and they were like, could you write a short play? And then it had in brackets afterwards in capital letters, a comedy. Because all my stuff is, they're dramas, and they were like, don't want, and it was like they specified a comedy, which was cool to write something like just absolutely ridiculous, which it was. But yeah, that's the only stage writing experience I have. Yeah.
Okay.
You've done very, very well with the festival runs. I'm friends with you on Facebook, I think, and it's like, this award. I'm delighted. And you're up for the Discovery now with DIFF.
With DIFF, for Ciúnas. Yeah, no, it was great. Yeah, it was great. It's been really...
You won in Cork, right?
Won Cork,
yeah. It was so amazing.
Yeah, so it's been a real...
And well deserved, definitely.
Brilliant film.
Yeah, we really kind of... when we made it, we had, it was limited. We had limited budget, with $5,000 to make it, and we kind of just it was tight, and we shot it in 2 days, and everyone kind of came and did it for Nari, and everyone kind of came, and they really believed in the project and the actors. We knew leaving, I knew after shooting, I knew we had something because of the actors and the people we had working on it. And then it was a matter of not messing it up in the edit, And
directing is so strong in it though. It comes across so.
And it was it was so rushed, everything was so rushed. Everything was so
But it's such a slow film.
Yeah. And it was the panic and the rush and the time we were under was, so yeah, we're really, really delighted with how it's been received. Because you never know.
Was it a Gaeilge set?
No. Nobody spoke Irish on set. Not one person.
Are you a Gaeilge?
No. No. So we had, no.
So you're from Connemara, your film's Irish, and you're not a Gaeilge?
Yeah. See, I don't come from a Gaeltacht area.
Okay.
So I did it in school the same as probably, you guys, but no, so I didn't speak.
You can count to 11 in Irish, that's it.
10.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we had to get the actors learned the Irish for the film. Gary Lydon learned it. Ali. Hazel was surprisingly almost fluent, which was when I rang her mum and she was like, oh, she's fluent, she's got to Irish college. So she was kind of helping the others, and I got audio tracks for them from a friend of mine who was a Gaeilgeoir for them to listen to. But yeah, Gary learned pretty much all the Irish.
Yeah, and it comes out so naturally from him, actually. Yeah. I thought he was probably a Gaeilgeoir when I was watching.
Yeah, no, yeah, they were, the three of them were kind of, Hazel was the more, had the most Irish from them all.
And she's just amazing. And very good timing to get her.
Yeah. And like I'd seen Float Like a Butterfly. I think before that, I'd seen her in Michael Inside at the Flat 2 years ago in 2017. And she's got one scene in it or something. And I can't even remember who I was sitting beside, but I was like, Jesus Christ. She was just, the emotion of her was just, pinned you to the seat. And she's in one scene. And it was just, I thought she was just some actress or kid that she had street cast. I didn't know. And then I saw her popping up in the promo material for Float Like a Butterfly, and I kind of looked up her stuff, and she was the only kind of one I had in my mind when we went to cast it, because you kind of knew it needed that performance. That's what it needed. It needed that level of emotion, and I kind of knew if I got her that it would be no problem, and it wasn't. She's like scary talented.
Brilliant.
Yeah, she's incredible.
Dad hug to be the bell.
Oh, hug. Vaig me imagine.
And was she alright?
Atashi Tawa. Jowl Kyler here. Tá Mark Lyons an ospedéal an sin comha.
Oh? Had a harla go sin?
For sé kick by ceannas na capel cúpla lá him. Flesk sé an flatin clúna here.
And was she glor?
Abe sé Tawa. Ní bhaid sé mar cíoc sa Grand National feag piasa.
And do you find, like, your experience as an actor, can that help? Because again, like the performances of the actors on that film is amazing. Like, I had a good like 5 minutes of leaky eye when I was watching that at the Flat. So do you find, was it hard to elicit those performances, or do you use tricks?
Not at all.
Yeah.
We didn't rehearse. We got to the house the night before, and we just had them read it 3 or 4 times together. They just met up and they read it by the fire a couple of times, and that was it. We didn't rehearse. And then the next day, I didn't even have to, I briefly spoke to Hazel briefly, but she just, we did 3 takes in a row, and she did that every time.
Wow.
And then the third time it was the one, and she came up and she asked for another take. She was like, I can do it better. I was like, gave her another one, and she did the exact same thing again. And like everyone in the room was just looking at her going, my God, that, she's really incredible.
Wow.
Very little direction they needed, any of them.
And would you find, like, in general, as a general rule, does your background in performance change the way that you direct, or is there, like, maybe things that you would do or wouldn't do?
I'm always very aware of the actors, always very aware of, like, keeping them away from, like, too much technical talk, and just keeping them away from that, and always kind of just very much always keeping the picture painted in their head of where they've just come from, what's happened, if we're shooting out of sequence and stuff, and just always kind of, because I used to like that, and the director would come up for a take and say, you just come from here, this has just happened, you've kind of just remember, and they just tune you into everything. So I try to do that, but besides that, I think, the actors I've worked with, luckily enough, haven't needed much direction at all. I think a lot of conversations beforehand, like weeks before, phone conversations with them. So kind of when we hit the set, there's not really much they know everything. And it's just kind of, the mechanics of it.
Perfect. That's great. And Iseult, just what's your own?
So my background is as an editor. I've been editing telly programs for almost 2 decades. I've been editing, and I never had the kind of like, oh, I'm a frustrated director stuck in an edit suite or anything, but had felt that if there was a story that really I wanted to tell, that I cared enough about, that I'd give it a lash. So I had wanted to tell a story about the confines of, actually it was interesting because when I started thinking about the subject of women in sport and trying to do something cinematic with that rather than televisual, I had originally been thinking how women in sport, that there's no audience or there isn't enough audience, and it kind of evolved. We tried to get funding from Screen Ireland on the previous round, and we got shortlisted and didn't make it. And then on the second round, Emma Scott and the gang were generous enough to give us the funding, and myself and Frankie Fenton, the producer with Kennedy Films, we realised that on our round 2 that the story I was trying to tell had kind of evolved a bit. It wasn't really so much about, oh, nobody's watching. That was never the kind of arc of it, but there was like a background, the backdrop to it, and that had shifted, which was really nice. So it's much more of a celebration. So anyway, I wanted to explore what happened to women when they played sport, and particularly team sport. And so your question is, I've just gone off on a tangent there. But yeah, in terms of how does editing affect directing and writing, because even though it's doc, it very much came from a doc treatment that I wrote as an adaptation sort of Emer's essay. So I think the editing, I do a little bit of writing anyway, and then the editing just gives you really clear idea of structure and pace and tone the whole time.
It's such a story-based medium that like definitely like it's very interesting. They're all very creative aspects of the process and in very different ways. And I think editing is just as creative in a lot of ways. You are finding the story, or
I do a lot of documentary editing. So yeah, you really are. You're finding your story in there. Yeah, it was dead handy on set, because there's shot lists that we're just never going to get through, and you've got crew who are brilliant crew who are working their asses off for so little money, and it was good to try and not have them go over the time and just be like, well, I'm not going to use that in the edit. I'm not going to, I'm culling my own shot list.
You know what you need to get you from here to there.
Yeah, and once you see how things are working out, you can see straight away whether I'm going to end up using it in the edit or not.
Such a valuable skill, I think, to have for directing, editing, like a knowledge of the edit.
Say your
because you just know
director,
if you're stuck, you can be like, right, I can see this, cut to that, and we can just. I'd be like, oh,
no, I know.
Yeah.
I know it's hard to visualize it sometimes.
Yeah.
Can I just ask a question, Iseult, about your casting? So you said that you got to the girl, the camogie player, is the writer.
Ryan.
So she wrote the
essay. Yeah,
is she the one with the lady with the dark hair? The lady.
Yeah. So she's the
main one, kind of like it leaves at the end in the car. That's
exactly. Yeah. So she and in her essay she talks about being a child growing up. So the film begins in a kind of a drama setup, where you see a child, and so that child is representing Emer as a child.
And so with the other 2 women that you filmed with, how did you cast them? How did you find?
I wanted to get a rugby player, and a friend of mine who's also an editor, Roisin O'Donnell, I talked to her a good bit about the kind of character that I wanted, because, and it actually was handy because I'd written this treatment, which is a kind of a bizarre thing to do for a doc, but Film Board insist on it, or Screen Ireland. So I had kind of dummied out what I wanted them to say, or the kind of things I'd want to talk about. So that really helped me focus on who I really wanted to cast. So when we went in for the second year to try and get the money, we went in with the full cast. So at that point, Roisin O'Donnell, who plays rugby for Old Belvedere Women, had talked to me about some of her teammates. And she had said that there's this woman called Elisa Byrne-White who she thought would be a really good fit.
She speaks so well in it. Like, she seems
brilliant.
like an actor almost.
She's
just
star,
like, how is she so eloquent?
Yeah.
Like, she's brilliant.
It was a gorgeous thing to witness when it screened in Cork for the first time. And Elise was there, and she had said to me, like when I interviewed her on the day, and I tried to keep it really casual. I didn't want to do sit down kind of formal interviews or eye directs or anything. I wanted it to feel in the moment. So we had a phone conversation, we've had lots of chats, but we didn't go like, okay, this is exactly what we're going to cover. And it was just a really brilliant conversation. But afterwards she's like, oh, I don't even know why you're talking to me. Like, I have nothing to say. I was there, you should be in a fucking commercial. Like, you're brilliant.
They're always
and
the
then
best.
we showed it in Cork, and afterwards we were in the bar, and all these people were walking by, and then they'd stop and they'd do this turn, like this kind of double head turn. They'd come back to her and they'd say, oh, you're the girl, you're the rugby player. Oh my God, you're so inspirational. And you could just feel her confidence growing, you know, because she was sort of saying at the time, oh, it's just because of the questions you were asking me. And, you know, you pulled all that out of me. And I was like, I didn't, that's all in you. So I think she began to believe that, which was
that's
the
brilliant.
truth. You know?
Team sport does something to a girl. You get to think about your body in terms of what it can do rather than how it looks. You become more engine than ornament. Yes! This is what freedom can feel like.
Yeah, she's great. And then Rihanna Jarrett is this Irish soccer star who plays for Wexford Youths. And I just had done lots of Googling about different women in Irish soccer. And she had a really interesting story, I thought. And she's really skilled. And when I contacted her, she was interested. And thankfully, her manager was up for it too. Because it's kind of a lot of commitment. Even though it's only a day's filming, it's a lot of commitment for them to kind of let you in and have that access, because they have to give you the whole team, and it's a bit of a distraction for them. But she's great.
Might not know how it will turn out in the end.
It was like, so they were like, how is this taking so long?
They never understand. They're like, what?
Yeah, no amount of Aldi pretend lion bars are going to make them want to stay for 8 hours. Rihanna was brilliant, and she's since been signed for Brighton like in the last 2 weeks. So
the way you interviewed her was so beautiful as well, like where she's actually in the middle of doing her little keepy uppy, like, and probably for her as well, that type of character who potentially, sorry if I'm
she's
like
a
spoiler
doer.
or whatever, who says that she's shy maybe, and that wouldn't be probably her favourite way to communicate through being interviewed, but
exactly,
with something to do, like, and it works so well in the film.
I was really happy with that, actually.
It's really cool.
Kept that physicality going, and it really adds so much energy to actually watching it. It's not just talking heads. 100%. It's, you know, people in action doing exactly what they're talking about in a powerful way. So it's
that's
lovely
really nice
to
to hear
watch.
you got that. We didn't want it to just still, you know, when they were, particularly with Rihanna when she came on, I wanted it to sort of still have some propulsion. So her kind of doing keepy uppies or being, when she was sitting down kind of playing around with the ball, and it made her more comfortable.
Yeah. So. Even the skill of being able to talk when you're doing keepy uppies, like,
she's
like she's obviously brilliant.
Some of the kind of like the interactions are so physical and intense. I was watching it kind of flinching when you're doing it. It does get the point across. Like, these women are strong. They're you know, they're able to hold themselves. They can be injured and kind of pick themselves back up and keep going. Which is really nice to watch.
Yeah, I play soccer on a Tuesday night with loads of other old people, and you're not old if you're listening, but no, some other women who aren't in their 20s or 30s, and it's just like five-a-side. It's totally amateur, but Astro,
it's amazing.
It's brilliant, and it's like a life force. So, and I knew that was kind of spurring me on, that I had done a load of that and had done indoor climbing, and so I knew myself what it felt like, even though on a completely different level, but just the kind of fizz you get from sort of, being in charge of yourself like that in a physical way.
Yeah. So I just want to ask a little bit, you have touched on it there a bit about the essay, but where in general do you guys get your ideas from when it comes to finding projects? And like, what's the development process like?
Yeah, I'm dying to know where Wrath came from. It's so brilliant.
It's a true story from my life.
I'm full of rage.
No, it's like really hard to come up with ideas. Wrath, it's funny because everything else I had made up to making Wrath, which wasn't a lot, to be honest, like it's kind of college-y stuff or, no budget things, but they were always through the medium of comedy. Like, I just thought like that was, for me at the time, it was like the way that I felt worked best for me to kind of address topics, often with a feminist bent. Like, I've always kind of been interested in feminism. But then basically with Wrath particularly, it was like the Me Too movement all kind of started happening in, was it like 2016, 2017? Yeah. And I was just like, I don't know, it just was like, I was just angry, like, and I was really upset and annoyed, and I knew that had always been there or whatever. And then, it was kind of through a bit of, I wanted to address things about rage and feminism and just things that I hadn't, and like girlhood and womanhood and loss of autonomy, bodily autonomy, and all kinds of stuff like that. But that's kind of when I kind of went, oh, like comedy isn't the right way for me to deal with this particular thing, because I'm not laughing right now. So yeah, I suppose. And then it all sort of came together. Like it actually felt really like, oh, this is kind of more true to me, for me at the moment, more true of a kind of style and tone of thing to be making.
My mother once told me the story of Bife. The mythical goddess of war and fury. A bringer of death and chaos. She flew over battlefields shrieking and rousing a bloodlust in her army and instilling mortal fear in her enemies.
For me, with Wrath anyway, it kind of came from stopping thinking that things were funny anymore and just being really angry and wanting to make something about that.
But you did it in such a lovely way, like it's so elegant, you know, it doesn't feel like anybody's preaching at you. So what you've done, that's the best kind of filmmaking where, or certainly really interesting kind of filmmaking where you've got, you know, you can feel the force of all the things that are in real life that are driving you to write it and to direct it, but none of them are so clear. So it's a kind of, your audience is then active because we're having to figure out what you're trying to say.
Because you can feel the anger in it, but it's not like hitting you over the head. It's still subtly kind of layered underneath it, like in a way that it still makes you think. You have to think about it. It's not like, oh, this is about this. But you can feel the anger in it, you know.
And it's very much in that language of nicely paced, short films, simple story, not overcomplicated, not too much going on.
It's really hard to make short drama. So you both should be really proud of yourselves. It's really hard to tell a story that feels like it was worth telling. Like sometimes you watch a short film and it's like beautifully made, or like, oh yeah, that was quite interesting. But for it to get to the end and be like, okay, that was definitely worth.
They're hard. The endings are always the hardest. Yeah. To just like, you know.
Funnily enough, actually, the ending of Wrath, it was kind of in contention with the film board with Screen Ireland when I went in. One of the main things was in the original script, you do see her face at the end. I don't really mind about spoilers if nobody else does. But like she has a blood spattered face at the end, basically. And one of the people who was on the panel was like, no, don't do that. It's too much. Like, and I think they probably weren't sure about funding me, that particular person, funding us because the script ends in this, like, this is actually what happened. Her face is splattered in blood. So they asked us to shoot it in two different ways as well. So that one, it would end with something else that was a little less kind of obvious, and one it would end, and in the second one that it would be where you would see that the little girl has had something to do with the violence that's happened. But
and in the end, did you have to show two versions from your edit?
No, we didn't actually. Emma Scott was just the whole way along. She was the main person that we were in contact with, and she was just so supportive the whole way along. And
she's really supportive.
I love her. And like while we were doing it, the whole time she would have questions, and they were all very valid. And lots of times we changed things because of things that she had suggested or questions that she had. But she would always say like, "But whatever it is, you know, it's your film, so whatever you think, or it's as long as it needs to be," or, you know, she was very supportive. So they didn't make us show them two options. No,
that's great. Because I think sometimes as well, and it doesn't say anything about the person, but not everyone resonates with every idea or every script. And I think you're probably in a difficult position if you are the funder. If you're like, oh, this isn't just working for me. I want to try and fix it. But like, it's just that it doesn't work for that person, but it might work. It's just a different, like everyone has kind of different ways that they perceive and see things and like things.
Yeah. It was good to think about it being an option as well. But it just felt right in the end to end it like that.
Oh no, that's really kind of powerful. And it does give that, I'm afraid of doing the spoilers, but it does kind of hammer home that thing where like we're just angry, we're sick of things the way they are.
Yeah, exactly. I think it actually would have been like a lot more boring if that didn't happen at the end. You'd be like, well, what actually happened?
Yeah.
What's the point of this film?
Because some of the things are quite abstract and they're quite hinting towards it at the beginning, and then at the end, you would be like, what actually happened?
Yeah. No, I'm glad.
Experimental piece.
Yeah, I'm glad they didn't say all the way along, like, you can't do that shot and we never got it or something. That would have been a disaster. But yeah,
like for Ciúnas came about 2015. It's been around that long. The idea, I was visiting a friend in a psychiatric hospital. It's not funny. I don't know why I laughed at that. And,
so Irish.
It is.
And
deal with it.
I was waiting in a little room, like a cafeteria area, and there was a mother and a father. I'd say they were in their like 40s, 50s, kind of 50s, I'd say. And their son came out, and it was like the awkward interaction between them. The father, like, kept asking him, did he want a cup of tea? And then he got out of there, and it was the mother kind of sat there and made small talk. And I only saw it for like a minute or two, and it was just a paragraph I wrote, and I stuck it away, and I never went back to it. But it was kind of always like, oh, maybe I'll do something with that idea. And then it was the fishing competition, was like 2 years later or something, and you had to submit a paragraph of an idea. So it was like the easiest thing. I didn't have to write a script. It was like, oh, a paragraph, maybe that. And I sent that and a couple of ideas in. And that was the one they picked. And it then got developed. Jerry Stembridge, we did a weekend with Jerry Stembridge and kind of developed it from there. And it won they shortlisted it, and then you have to pitch, and it won the pitch thing. So, but from there then, once I get the actors on, I like to talk to them a lot about the characters, and kind of like as I'm writing, just to get ideas and kind of send it on to them and get their thoughts. Sometimes I did on that one. And I just kind of keep going over it, keep kind of rewriting it, and to a certain point until you have to shoot it, but it's pretty much, I rarely feel like it's ever done for me. And I'm always very sometimes unsure, if you're doing it right, or if it's done, up until it. But all the stories I've done have all kind of came from something like that, reading an article about something, or something, just a little thing. And it's usually if they hang about for long enough, or they're there kind of, but it's fun. Like, I don't know if I would have made Ciúnas or written a script for it, but it just happened that, you had to send a paragraph into this, to fishing, and it was perfect at the time. Because I don't know if I would have like written the script or gone with that topic.
Speaking how the brain holds on to the things and keeps reminding you, it's like, that was interesting, and that resonated with me. It was just that
total. There was something in their inability to speak about what was obviously going on, and that kind of them older characters, the kind of older characters, like, my dad would be very similar, and then Gary's character would be a lot kind of based on that, just that inability to communicate past the surface level, past football, or things like this. You can't go really any deeper than that.
It's the generational divide, and it's those Irish people. You're taught, oh, just shut up and get over it. Like, it's hard to tackle those big issues. So I think that's why it rings so true. And I think as a nation as well, we're not the only people who kind of have those repressions on us from the past. So it's probably why it's travelled quite well as well, has it?
It has, It's played at some great festivals, and we've been away with it. It has. It's travelled really well. That was where it came from, and I think a lot of people saw people they knew in it or something, and it's about the way that they. Sometimes you worry that people, I think, don't care about you or something when you're younger or something because they can't say it, but it's kind of about there's different ways that they just don't have the tools to say the things that they'd want to, so they have to do it in different ways, and it can be, that was kind of the whole crux of the story, trying to get that across.
Other languages.
Yeah.
Non-verbal, yeah. I have a question for these guys.
Yeah.
So did either of I've, in a few shorts that I've edited for other people, that's script would have changed once we got into the edit, so I would have fucked around with it and with the directors. And did your guys' films end up being as per script?
Yeah, pretty much.
Mine was like pretty much, but I love the editing process actually because it's so weird. It's such a weird alchemy.
It's perfect. I mean, your film must have been great fun to cut because it's not linear. So
true, but I suppose that part, it did still hold most of the structure that was in the script as regards to the kind of timeline. But I don't know, like, I mean, they're almost more subtle things, like, but you know, when you're like sitting in an editing room and you've been there with the editor for ages and you think, we've really got it now. And then you bring someone else in and they're like, and they don't even say anything. And you're like, oh God, what are we doing? This film's terrible. But you notice all the like weird clunky bits when somebody else
someone
is
else's
watching
eyes,
it.
even if they say nothing. Yeah, it's true.
But we refined it a lot. We took out a lot of the fat from the film when we got into the edit. And I suppose the editor was really creative with some of the more dreamy sequences or whatever. So while it did keep most of the structure, it changed, probably not dramatically, but importantly in the edit, I think. Yeah, I love it.
Cool.
Excellent. And your process with coming up with ideas for stuff. So this was the essay that really stuck with you. Is there anything else when it comes to ideas where you like to find them, or do they find you? And how do you deal with them then? How do you process them?
That's a work in progress. I think I'm finding that I don't keep things unless I really care about them. And maybe unless there's some tension there. But like what you were saying, Suri, that the things that you're trying to process get you, you know, you're like, I need a way to express this.
Yeah, film as catharsis.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like right now I'm trying to come up with a bunch of ideas for other projects, and I'm trying to figure out which stick.
What annoys you the most?
Well, yeah, kind of. Well, like the things that I'm coming back to are like, or I'm like, no, actually, this is what I would like to. Yeah, there's some tension there. Whether, I mean, it doesn't have to be something that's rageful, but some conundrum that I need to solve in my head at least.
And do you have ideas at the moment? And how, what would be the next step for you with an idea? Would you write like a one page, or would you write an outline, or do you just formulate them in your head?
I'd usually go to my notes in my phone and have a bunch of bad ideas in there.
Yeah.
That one of them.
And how detailed would they be, the ideas?
Usually like you're saying about a paragraph, like a springboard. So I've done some writing for animation, and that was quite a good process for writing, because you have to do the springboard, which is like a paragraph for an episode, and then you've to develop that into an outline, and then you develop it into a script, and it can feel quite frustratingly rigid, but it's actually quite a good creative tool.
God, you had to have a system, because it's like, I've only started trying to write treatments, and oh my God, have you written treatments?
I love treatments, but for me,
you were the only person I've ever met in my whole life
ever.
I love all the nerdy stuff. I love it because it really refines an idea for me. Like I know a treatment can be quite sprawling, but like I think all those little things that the film board make you do, that Screen Ireland make you do, I love them.
Yeah, I liked doing a treatment for mine.
You know, if you've got like an idea and you have to write a treatment, how do you like find all the bits in it? You know, if it's just an idea and you're like, you have to write a treatment.
I don't think I've ever gone from idea to treatment. I probably go idea, script, treatment.
Or would you go idea, write the script?
Yeah. Well,
and would you just sit down and just start writing?
But this is like shorts now, so I mean, you might be talking about features or something as well, which is obviously like
I've never written a treatment for a short.
Okay.
I've just written like a draft. I think sometimes if you have a bad draft of a short 10 pages, you can look at it and you're like, okay, well that doesn't work, and at least you've got something.
Yeah.
But when it's in your head, sometimes it's a mess, isn't it? It's just like, and if you've got a couple of different ideas, it's like pretty torturous.
Like the whole thing,
the writing process.
Still,
you know, it's
torturous.
Trying to get the nuances out in the kind of dry prose is hard for the treatment. Like if you're doing a feature one, especially, it's just like, no, but in this scene I want it to be about this, but you're like, really, this person just literally said this. but it's really, it's just hard, I think.
I haven't done it for features. So
and I've heard any feature writers talk about it. I mean, they all say it's absolutely torturous. So, and actually at this Expollinator, where are you? Either of you guys at Expollinator?
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, it was awesome. So like a lot of the producers were saying, we don't even like them, but they're just
They
a
don't
kind
like
of a necessary evil.
Yeah.
So yeah, I thought that was interesting. Like nobody likes doing them, but I guess they kind of distill.
But they swear by
idea.
them, I think, writers, a lot
Just
of people.
Suri, you're the
just
only
say,
person.
Yeah.
hey guys, get me to write your treatment.
But I think I think what Suri's saying is that like a treatment for a short is a very different
Yeah.
It's almost like a
process.
pitching document,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
nicer because this is the potential and the
treatment for a
fun.
feature.
Yeah.
seems
And
to be
the
awful.
treatment I did for this grass ceiling was, I almost approached it like free writing. You know, I wrote it like like there's a rhythm in it, like creative writing. I didn't set it out to be
technical kind of document.
exactly.
Yeah.
There's some technicality there, but I just kind of enjoyed, and then went, okay, well then I think this is getting across the tone and the heart of the thing. So I'm going to let it stand for me and hope it works.
Yeah, exactly.
It did.
And do you ever edit to a treatment? So if you're editing something, would you ever see this is what they wanted to be, and then here's the footage? Find that?
No, like sometimes I guess if you might ask for, if there's like a TV series or a TV doc, and you might ask for the treatment. So you're trying to get like a 1-pager just to say, okay, well, what is it? Because you're looking at 50 hours of rushes for a 50-minute documentary, and you're like, well, can someone tell me what this is? What this is, what's the commissioner expecting? Who, you know?
Yeah, a comedy, tragedy, family woes.
There's 18 different documentaries in here, so which one do you want to tell? Yeah, so in that way.
And we'll do a quick fire round. What did you guys learn from making these films?
I sound like a dick, but I learned that I could do it. You know, that I was able. And I mean, I learned loads more in that, but like that's the kind of thing that I took away from it. And that how much I loved the collaborative. I mean, I knew I loved working collaboratively, but you know, I had a brilliant DOP, Eleanor Bowman, and we great people on set. Myself and Frankie had pulled together a really lovely crew. And yeah, it was just, it's a really nice when you can feel that kind of, when the mechanics of that feel like they're like ticking and oiled and everybody's happy and you can feel something happening. And particularly when on our 3 sports days where we had massive numbers of people that we were really trying to keep buoyant and so much going on. Yeah, there was a real buzz from that.
Brilliant.
Things that I learned, it's kind of in a way similar because I'd brought quite a few people back who'd worked on my previous film and kind of found that sweet spot with the crew where everyone was just like there.
So perfecting it almost.
Yeah.
From
and
the last one.
Yeah. And I guess learning not to doubt, I think so much. I had like a couple of weeks before the shoot, I was like doubting everything. I was like having a meltdown about the script because it was real. You know, you've seen the film, there wasn't a huge amount in the thing. And I was thinking if I don't get, I started to doubt the idea that it needed more, that it was too subtle, that it needed. But then, I don't know, not to worry so much maybe. I'm trying not to have the same worries going into the next one that I had on Ciúnas, because I was really worried about the whole thing falling flat because so many things had to, the actors had to bring it to life really, and you never know if you hope that you cast right and that they're going to do it. But just the worry, I think trying to enjoy the process more, because it was just, it's like, no, I didn't, I can't say I enjoyed it.
Okay.
Did you enjoy
I did enjoy
or did
it.
the nerves kind of just, once you're in it,
Yeah.
I think it's so intense that you don't even have a chance to enjoy it. It's just kind of like you're being spun around a machine.
I had a
and then
couple
you're
of
spat
really good pals who talked me into enjoying it.
Yeah.
Cool.
Or just kind of finding space in it, which meant that I enjoyed it.
That's great.
Even though it was
It's
challenging.
How many days
And I
did
mean,
it
the
take you to
nerves
shoot?
are definitely there, but I think the nerves are, it's brilliant that you're going into your next one hoping to avoid nerves, but nerves, you know, that's impossible as well. And I suppose
guess
it's just
not trying to doubt as much,
Yeah.
not have
Yeah.
as much doubt.
And trust your instincts.
Yeah, because you know
Yeah.
you get that. Yeah, I'm trying to like not just doubt the idea and doubt, you know, everything going into it. Trying to just be a bit more, okay, I can do this. I've done it, you know, 4 times.
I think one thing that's really important to remember that people were reminding me is that you can go, oh, this isn't original. Someone else is doing this, or someone else has done this, and I think everything you look at, you could say that of.
Yeah.
So it's just, if you just have to remember that if you care about something, you'll be giving your version of it. So Paddy kept telling me that, and particularly for me, because I was doing documentary, that to remember that it's really doesn't, like, I cast 3 women, and I knew that Emer and Elise and Rihanna had something unique to say. So then I had to turn off that doubting voice and go, they've got something fresh. Nobody's heard them talk before. And they're going to be able to make people feel something. And I think that's hard to do in a short. And I feel proud that the grass seeding, I think, will make people feel something.
Yeah.
So I just had to kind of trust that they would totally carry that. And I knew they would. So that was helpful for me.
Yeah. I think probably fairly similar to Tristan, although I did really enjoy the process. I enjoyed the pre-production. I enjoyed the production. Post actually was probably my hardest point of the whole production process. So I suppose on set, for all my kind of feminist inclinations, I can be quite apologetic, and that is something that I'm trying to stop. Stop saying sorry and stop kind of doubting myself. Because I kind of don't doubt myself, but I think the language, it's hard to have that language sometimes to be assertive in those ways.
That's exactly what your film tackles.
Yeah, no, completely.
It goes right through it. Like, we're just trained from yay high to be like, worried about everyone's feelings.
And careful.
Just in case
and
you think that I think that you think that we think,
Oh, totally. And like, it's actually definitely, I mean, it's so ridiculously ironic because like it is part of my whole, the whole point of what I'd like to get across in the world, similar to your film, Iseult, is just like, we don't have to be these like pretty little inoffensive flowers that are just there for decoration. Not that it's quite so bad at the moment, but and
for
that we can be
here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that we can be kind of like not so perfect, but yet it is hard to sometimes be that in the world, like to take your own advice.
So do you think that becomes? Do you think that public apology is almost performative?
It or maybe hard not, yes, but also maybe just so hard not to do. Like, we're so conditioned to speak that way, or to also,
that's what I mean. But like, so you're saying like you kind of back yourself internally, but then when you're faced with other people around you, then the bit, you know, kind of comes out like, oh, sorry, or maybe
I don't know. Let's try it both ways. Even though really you're like, no, my way is the best.
Well, I definitely would have like a good strong heft of self-doubt there now too. But yeah, so yeah, I'm sure like performative without knowing.
I don't mean inauthentic, but just that it's something that happens around other people that we feel like you need to. But Tristan might think we're talking out our asses, and that's not, exclusive to being female.
Yeah. No, not at all. I was just thinking about my own self-doubt, and it's the same as yours. I'd be kind of very confident most of the time, but it just kind of comes, I think, before projects you get like, you just doubt that it's going to work, or it's going to, I think you doubt the idea, but I think ultimately, you know, I wouldn't have a lot of, you know, I think everyone has it at certain times. You have self-doubt. But
is that our deep-seated Catholic shame as well? Is there a little bit of like, who do you think you are making a film?
A bit of imposter syndrome. But actually, I did consciously surround myself with people in the crew, Narian particularly as well, who I knew wouldn't sort of go, kind of like, take advantage is the wrong word, but would sort of support me through that doubt, like would kind of still want my vision to come across, you know, so, and just kind of gave me that space and that kind of thing. So I kind of knew it would happen, and just had the right people around me to.
Yeah, it's so important.
It's so important to have just supportive people and people who are, you know, like Narian. You could go to him and say, I'm like, this shot, which is I want this, you know, and he'd be like, well, and he'll just go like, well, we could do it like this, and you know, he just shows it, and you know, as soon as you see it, then you're like, that's it, that's the one, you know. But to be able to just feel like you can just go and go, I don't actually know the best way where to put the camera on this one, or you know, you might and a lot of that would be done in pre-production, but sometimes you get into set on the day and it's not working, the location is slightly different, and you're kind of like, oh, this has changed, and to be able to ask completely, say, what would you do here, man, or what would you, you know,
and trust that he's not going to just do whatever he wants. Like
the director relationship with the DOP is a lovely one, isn't it? I really enjoyed that, and I had that with Eleanor Bowman. She was really brilliant with me as a first-time director, because she was in pre-production. She was kind of not letting me off the hook. She was really drawing out, you know, what do you want to do? She was sort of like almost saying an embargo on saying anything. That's what it felt like. You know, she was like, no, just tell me what you want. And then it was really collaborative, but I felt like she was saying, trust yourself, you know.
Good,
so she's great. She's great.
Excellent. So I think we've covered everything that we could possibly cover for something that's supposed to be relatively short. So thank you guys so much for chatting with us. That was so interesting and so informative. Thanks for chatting with us.
Thanks for having us in.
Thanks, guys. Nice to
Thank
meet you all.